You've probably heard the term data scientist thrown around a lot, right? For over a decade now, it's been this super hyped up, kind of mysterious job title. So, what's actually behind all that buzz? Let's break it down. Okay, so a lot of the hype, it really kicked off right here. Back in 2012, Harvard Business Review dropped this bombshell headline. Just like that, the role of data scientist was launched into the stratosphere. It created this image of a brilliant, almost mythical figure who could turn raw data into pure gold. But here's the thing. Fast forward to today, and even with all that hype, most of us are still kind of scratching our heads. Like, who are they really? Are they just coders, super smart statisticians, some kind of glorified analyst? Well, the real answer, it's way more interesting than any single one of those titles. So, if we're going to crack this sexiest job mystery, we can't just look for a simple one-sentence definition. It just doesn't work that way. The key is understanding that a data scientist isn't one thing. They exist at the crossroads of a few very different worlds. Yeah, think of them as a professional hybrid, a blend of different experts, all rolled into one. They have to have the sharp, analytical mind of a statistician, but also the hands-on building skills of a software engineer. And on top of all that, the big picture, strategic thinking of a business analyst. It's weaving those things together that makes the role so powerful and, so tricky to define. Okay, so how does this whole hybrid expert thing actually work in practice? Well, you can kind of picture it as a structure built on three essential pillars of knowledge. They're all distinct, but they're all connected. First up, the foundation for absolutely everything is what we'll call statistical rigor. And look, this isn't just about being a math whiz. It's about having the discipline to look at a bunch of data and know the difference between a real, meaningful pattern and just random noise. Without that, even the fanciest, most powerful algorithm can spit out answers that are not just wrong, but dangerously wrong. Next, you have to actually do something with all that theory. And that's where the second pillar comes in, programming proficiency. Data scientists, they live and breathe code. We're talking languages like Python, R, and SQL. They use this stuff to wrangle data, build models, basically to turn an idea into something that actually works. And let's be clear, this is not an optional skill. It is the absolute core of their day-to-day work. And finally, we have our third pillar. And honestly, this might be the most crucial one of all. It's called domain expertise. Because you can have all the technical skills in the world, but if you don't have business context, they're pretty much useless. A data scientist in finance has to understand how markets work. One in healthcare needs to get clinical data. This industry knowledge is what lets them ask the right questions to begin with. So this all leads to a really important contrast between the myth and the reality of this job. You know the myth, right? This image of a genius theorist just scribbling complex equations on a massive whiteboard. The reality, it's much more of a practical problem solver, someone who's getting their hands dirty, writing and debugging code to build something that, actually works. Okay, so we've got the skills down. But how do they actually use them? This is where we shift from what they know to what they do. And at the very heart of it all, data scientists are problem solvers. A huge part of their value isn't just in the final answer. It's in their whole thought process. So a business leader might come to them with a super vague goal like, hey, we need to increase sales. A data scientist's first job is to translate that, to break it down into sharp, specific questions that data can actually answer. Questions like, which of our customer segments are the most valuable? Or what factors actually predict a purchase? That translation skill, it's absolutely critical. And here's the kicker. They have to do all of this knowing that the data is never, ever going to be perfect. Real-world information is messy. It has missing pieces. It's biased. It's just chaotic. A huge part of the job is embracing that uncertainty and navigating through the mess to make the best possible call with the imperfect information you've got. But all that technical skill, that's really only half the equation. The truly great data scientists, the ones who make a real impact, have mastered something else entirely, the human side of data. Think about it. What good is a brilliant analysis if nobody understands what it means? It's useless, right? This is why data scientists have to be storytellers. They use clear visuals and compelling narratives to translate their complex findings for everybody else, so that leaders can grasp the insights and, most importantly, actually act on them. This gets at a really fundamental idea.
The goal isn't just to be technically correct, the goal is to drive real change. A pretty good model that people actually trust and use is infinitely more valuable than a technically perfect one that just sits on a shelf because nobody ever acts on it.
They also have to play the vital role of the healthy skeptic. They're the person in the room who's willing to ask the tough questions, like, are we really sure about this conclusion? Or, wait, have we considered these other factors? This protects the entire organization from making bad decisions based on, just wishful thinking.
And that skepticism goes even deeper. It gets into ethics. Because they're often working with sensitive data and building models that can really affect people's lives, they have to constantly ask a much bigger question. It's not just, hey, can we do this with the data? It's, should we? They have to consider fairness, bias, and the real human impact of their work. So when we pull all of this together, the technical skills, the practical problem solving, and that all-important human side, a really clear and powerful picture starts to form about what a data scientist's ultimate role really is. So let's circle back. Who is a data scientist? Well, they're an interdisciplinary expert, but they're also a hands-on, roll-up-your-sleeves problem solver. They're a skilled storyteller who can find clarity in all the chaos, and they're an ethical guardian who asks if they should. And above all, they're a continuous learner in a field that never, ever stops moving. And that's their ultimate purpose, right there. They are the crucial bridge. On one side, you have this giant, overwhelming sea of raw information. On the other side, you have the clear, decisive actions a business needs to take. A data scientist is the one who builds that bridge, turning all that data into real, actionable insight. Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. We are surrounded by more data than ever before in history. But just having data isn't enough, is it? The real challenge and the true value of the data scientist is turning all of that information into something we can genuinely call wisdom.